Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! This happened about a year or two ago. I used to be a waitress in a small pizza restaurant. It was fun, I made lots of friends, and I knew most of the customers on a first-name basis. Sometimes the owners of the restaurant couldn't have a babysitter for their son, who was about a year old at the time, so they would set up a crib for the baby up on the floor, and I would often make sure he was okay. I didn't have to because his mom was doing it too, but if he dropped a toy or was trying to crawl out, I'd help him out as long as I wasn't busy. This particular night was pretty busy, but things were starting to slow down. I had a table of 4 middle-aged ladies who were extremely sweet, and they tipped me vigorously. I thought it was amazing. I was grateful, and I personally thought it was because I was working hard. Fast forward a week and a half and they come in again and ask where my baby is. I said, oh, he's not mine, but he probably has a babysitter today. The one woman then got extremely upset with me, saying that I should have clarified he wasn't mine. I said I'm 16. If I had a child, trust me, things will be a lot different. She began yelling, saying they wanted her tip back, and I should clarify each time there is a kid here that it's not mine, because it's very misleading. I told him that I wasn't going to do that, because people shouldn't assume a kid is mine just because I help him. My manager, also the mother of the baby, overheard the conversation and tried to talk to them, but they ended up being escorted out by security. This story only came to mind recently when I saw that customer at my current job. I work at the hospital in my town now, and I held such a grudge I had to refuse care, and they switched my patients around. Okay, I would like to start by saying that I struggle with anxiety, autism, and some dyslexia. So this started during the spring break last year when I did some Gundam customs for extra money while mowing people's lawns and washing some cars here and there. How the city is laid out. My house is all the woods on the upper northwest side of the city I live in. This is downtown Houston and the only pedo city in at least 100 to 190 miles from any city like Dallas. So I had my prices at a firm price so I can pay for gas and for my Gunpla. Gunpla stands for Gundam Plastic Model, and they are just small model kits of Gunpla from their respective shows. But anyways, back to the story. I enter the Target, usually go to look at their Gunpla stock and see what I could buy. And like usually they had some high-grade kits from the range from HG Cars Red Zaco as a young mobile suit by mainly used as a grunt. A couple Battle Log Gunpla kits like the Barbatorus, a Tanjiro statue kit, Deco statue kit, an Ultra Instinct Goku model kit, a Naruto model kit. I go to grab the high-grade Strike Freedom Gundam, the last one by the way, for an ancient Egyptian type of custom. It was a Horus style of custom and I had to heavily modify the head. I go to the self-checkout line so I can buy it and I feel something tugging at my shirt. And I turn around as I see this 5'4", probably middle-aged or 40-year-old woman who was surprisingly fit for her age, and this conversation happens. What is this that you have, if you don't mind me asking? I don't mind, it's a model kit for a custom I'm doing for a client. Oh, is that like Legos? Yes it is, but it's from Japan. I then started laughing as some of the other guys that were around me heard it and also chuckled, and this somewhat irritated her. Oh, it's one of those people that started COVID. Those people ruined our lives forever and they are the ones to blame. Go put that back and go get something real. I didn't budge because I'm, well, a 6 feet man, and I'm not frail, and I wasn't swimming as a sport and had since quit because of personal issues. I was next in line for the self-checkout and she grabbed me and forced me into a citizen's arrest, and I just went along with it because I could feel an anxiety attack coming up. My anxiety, like others, are vastly different. My hands start shaking, I start stuttering, some slight sweating, and my mind starts racing. So I sit down next to the small, little refrigerators, and one of the guys who chuckled decided to stay and sit with me because he has a stepson with anxiety, while the lady called the cops, and we all waited. When the cops got there, they asked for her side first, while what seems to be a newbie pulled out his cuffs and was ready to arrest me until the guy who stayed told him mine and his side of the story, and the two cops switched roles as a female cop insisted on arresting me anyways. But thank God that the older female cop said to switch places, and the man explained what happened since I was getting dangerously close to my anxiety attack, and she asked for my name and what I was doing. And I told her and showed her the kit, and the man also mentioned that I have anxiety. I wasn't able to answer most of the questions being asked, and she automatically knew and told the newbie. I will call the older female cop Queen because she looked like a combination of Queen Bee from RID 2015 and Bumblebee from Young Justice Invasion. Queen tells the lady I did nothing wrong and was fined for wasting the officer's time and to please leave the property. She of course got angry and slapped Queen on the face, as she was also charged with assaulting an officer and was arrested. And Queen tells a newbie to take her to the cruiser outside, and she does so. Queen then asks what is my favorite soda, and I say Mountain Dew, and she offers to buy both for me, and I cry and smile because it was a very kind thing to do, especially from a cop. And she hugged me and I was happy for it. And then I simply went back home. The summer of 2019, me and my two friends, let's just say their names are just B and F, were walking through the park to fill up our drinks from the fountain, and there was some trash on the grass from some other kids we had been with earlier. We were walking along talking when an entitled woman confronted us. She walks over and immediately attacks us saying, "Do you really think it's acceptable to leave all this crap on my grass?" B tells her, "This isn't your grass though, and it wasn't us." "I know it was you. I saw you." We knew she couldn't have because it wasn't us, it was some other people. We tried explaining this to her for a good 10 minutes or so. But the entitled mother then walked off and started picking up the trash, which is very nice of her. We thought this was the end of it, but it wasn't. When we came back from getting water, she was standing, blocking the path holding a large stick. We continued walking, expecting her to move, but she started shouting something about how our generation is disrespectful and doesn't respect other people's property. Again, this isn't her land, and we haven't done anything wrong to start with. She then informs us that she has gone to the police station, which was on the main street next to the park, and that an officer was coming to speak to us about our littering and destruction of property. The officer came over after she was holding us on the bus for a few minutes, and we explained the situation to him. The entitled mother then starts screaming at us that she will get her revenge, and how we will never disrespect her again. The officer then took us aside and told us just to quickly get away from her and the park. We walked off to the sounds of her screaming obscenities and trying to push the officer away, which did not end well for her, as she ended up in handcuffs. Since then, we haven't had another issue with her. As some of you may know, I work at a Mindy's drive-thru. There's been a lot of changes lately that frustrates the customers, the employees, and then another vicious cycle of customer-employee frustration for a cascade of various other reasons. It's like a beautiful waterfall that is running directly over the front of your face, making your lower lip come down, making you look weird and ugly, and you can't breathe because of the constant flow of water. It seems like it could be something good, but it all depends on where you're standing. The drive-thru people are standing at the worst possible spot, pummeled by beautiful water. But I digress. A lady orders 3 baggy bags, which has got to be one of the funniest strong names for our products. Since that time, a guy called Baconator, a Terminator. I ask her which ones. We have 3 options. And she says, a baggy bag, the only one you have. Wow, we're off to a swimming start. At this point, I would usually be a sarcastic, snide or pity, but I've been learning from these YouTube videos how to interact with people properly. So this has helped me get rid of, or at least postpone, this sort of behavior in myself. I found it very helpful for moments like these. I use this newfound social knowledge to simply explain that we have 3 options to choose from. The Punier Jakim Peace Churger, the Stoppeldak, or the Chispy Cricken PLT. Well, she said the Stoppeldak. Duh. Oh, and you idiots always never listen to me. You need to put those things in 3 separate bags. Okay, now she called me an idiot. I really want to lose it. And my coworker can feel it in my voice, trying not to sigh and giving myself a breathing problem as a result. She helped me deflect by saying, oh my god, I can't believe this woman. Sounds like my aunt. And I hate my aunt. With a little help from my friends, I don't say what I want to and say separate bags. Separate bags, you say? Preposterous. I just simply go, separate bags? You got it. I say it the way I would describe what I had for breakfast, another thing I learned from Tom Hardy. She then replies, look motherfather, 3 separate bags. And she drove off screeching her car, which hurt my ear immensely. This really set me off. Even if I wanted to say something back to this lady, I couldn't. I saw her car swing around the bend and almost hit the car in front of her. My ears were still ringing. Time for some much-needed, malicious compliance. 3 separate bags, huh? You got it. So the baggy bag comes with a drink, fries, nuggets, and a sandwich of your choosing. Typically, we put 1 burger, 1 fries, and 1 nuggets in 1 bag. I'm gonna do it a little differently. I begged Bruce, the manager, to let me bag this one. He heard that bullcrap this lady said, so he reluctantly nodded and waved his hand toward the station. I washed my hands glove up faster than I ever had before and put all the fries in 1 bag, all the burgers in a 2nd bag, and all the nuggets in a 3rd bag. She gets to the window and the driver looks very pleasant, and not what I expected. The passenger, not so much. She leans over the nice one and says, "You got that in 3 separate bags?" Sam, my cohort, hands the bags out and says, "Yep, 1 to 3. The driver looks in the bags and tries to hide a smile while shaking her head. Turns to the passenger who looks in the bags and says, "Are you freaking serious? Oh my god." She yells at the driver to say, "Just go." And the driver screeches off again, still smiling. It's kinda nice to ruin one person's day while making another's. Who am I kidding? They probably forgot about this 10 minutes later. I never will though. I, 32 female, work part-time at a pet store to supplement my income, as my salary of a full-time teacher doesn't always pay the bills. Plus I have a few pets and 20% off of in-store purchases is rather helpful. Anyway, one of the things we supply are live and frozen feeder animals for things like reptiles, certain aquatic creatures, and invertebrates. These include things like mice, rats, dubia roaches, bloodworms, mealworms, waxworms, superworms, and crickets. The mice and rats are either frozen or live, but either way, they are easy to count and box up for the customer. Dubia roaches, mealworms, waxworms, and superworms are pre-packaged and price-marked, but the crickets are not. Crickets are kept in these large containers with mesh-top egg cartons for the crickets to climb and hide in. Cricket food and hydration. This means when customers ask for crickets, which we usually sell by the dozen, we have to count and retrieve them manually while putting them in a plastic bag. We then fill with air and tie off to go with the customer. Our method for transferring the crickets is to lightly tap the egg cartons over a funnel-like object that doesn't have a hole at the bottom. We tap the crickets in, wrap the plastic bag around the mouth of the funnel, then tip it, and lightly tap the crickets into the bag. Some crickets jump in and out of order or cling to others, so often customers are given bonus crickets, which we are okay with. It's better than shorting them. So customers are always given the right amount or often more than what they asked for without an increase in price. Most people get this. The customer in this story did not. A woman came in and she asked for 4 dozen crickets, 48 crickets total. I went to the back, tapped the crickets from the cartons into the funnel, and then counted them into the bag. As per usual, the occasional extra cricket tumbled or hopped in, probably putting the total to a bit over 50 by the time I was done. I bagged them, tied the bag, then took them to the counter. Now, I don't know if this woman was having a bad day or she had been stiffed by another store in the past, but she demanded that we count out the crickets in front of her before she paid for them. I explained that it was likely that she got more than what she asked for, and counting out 48 crickets individually would take a little while. She insisted she wanted to be sure we weren't ripping her off. So I got one of those small plastic critter keepers and a pair of tongs. I opened the bag, making it deflate and slightly more painful to work with, and inserted the tongs, delicately so as not to crush the crickets. I grabbed each one with the tongs and started counting slowly so as not to crush the crickets with the tongs or lose my place while counting, something I do struggle with, and dropped each individually counted cricket into the critter keeper. So after about 5 to 10 minutes at the counter meticulously counting crickets with tongs, and maybe deliberately taking a little bit longer than I had to, out of spite, a line was building up behind the woman and I was getting close to the end of my count. Eventually I had the grand total of what she paid for, 48 crickets. And wouldn't you believe it, there were 10 left over in the bag, almost a whole extra 3 dozen she would have gotten had she not asked me to count. I said, "Oh, would you look at that? My mistake, you were right. I did miscount. I'll put these other ones back and ring you up for the 48. I'll be right back." And before she could protest, I wandered off to dump the last 10 crickets back into the cricket container, and when I came back to check her out, she was silent, not looking at me, and did her best to ignore the irritated looks of the customers lining up behind her while I poured her 48 crickets back into a plastic bag. She paid, then slunk off sheepishly out the door without a thank you or a glance back. I then got through the rest of the line quickly and apologized to the customers in line for the wait. I sent them home with some free samples, thanked them for their patience, then continued along with my shift. She never complained, and she did return to the location several times after, and she never asked anyone to count crickets again.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.